Okay. Thank you all for being here. It's 2 p.m. now on October 22, 2019, and it's time to start our board workshop. I want you to note as far as the agenda for our meetings this afternoon, we've reordered the agenda, moving public comment to the end of the agenda to allow for the business of the board to be completed. This meeting will conclude at 5 p.m., the workshop I'm talking about. And I'm going to look to the board assistant. I think it's time that we now commence with a shade meeting. The school board will now hold a shade meeting in order to give discussion of safety and security. Pursuant to section 281.301 Florida statutes, the shade session is closed to the public. The meeting is exempt from provisions of FS Florida Statute 286.011 and is closed to the public. School board members attending the shade session are Scott Hopes, Charlie Kennedy, Gina Messenger, and Dave Watchdog Minor. Mr. Golden regrets that he's not able to join us for this workshop. He may join us later on. Superintendent Cynthia Saunders, Mr. Steve Dye, School Board Attorney, Mr. Doug Wagner, the Deputy Superintendent of Business Systems and Operations, along with Mr. Paul D'Amico, or D'Amico? D'Amico, okay. Let's see. Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Patrick Bartholomew, Chief of Safety and Security, Ms. Sally Hull, Safety and Emergency Management Manager, Mr. Todd Henson, Director of Maintenance and Operations, Ms. Heather Jenkins, Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Kevin Chapman, Director of Strategic Planning and District Initiatives, also will be in attendance. I don't think they're all here, but if they come in, I guess we allow them to come in. Okay. At this time, I will ask everyone else to leave, and we'll close the workshop. We'll close for the workshop. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I want to be out of order. I don't think my name is on that list.
Well, we'll put you on your. We're going live in 15 seconds. Okay, we are live. We've closed the shade meeting. We're back in our agenda, for the workshop and the, I have on here, Michelle, help me.
Yes, Mr. Minor, I'm getting in touch with Ms. Foreman right now.
She's here, she's right here. She's
here?
right outside
Okay.
the door. She's
Okay.
coming in right now. Yes, come on down. You're up. You are?
Okay. Madam Super Clerk? Yeah, okay, what was printed out to me had this public comments right at the front, but if we have any public comments, time at the end of our workshop, but before 5 p.m., we'll have public comments, otherwise, we'll just adjourn. Okay.
Yes, sir, and I don't see anybody that had signed up is here at the moment, so I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you very much for that guidance. Okay, we're back in our workshop meeting, and we're reports and presentations, and we're honored and pleased to have with us the chair of our audit committee, Mary Foreman. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chairman Minor, board members, Superintendent Saunders. Audit committee met on October 10th, and we started off with a presentation by Mr. John Rickard, who talked to us about the FAD's focus study on human resources. He brought us up to speed on what changes they're making, what they're implementing. We had asked about this because CRI is about to, actually they just started the audit on payroll and HR. So we didn't want things not meshing. So we were updated on the progress made, and CRI will consider this in planning the audit. Then Scott Hansen discussed with us action plans that are being implemented for the PeopleSoft implementation and the Agitech contract and renewal billings. When CRI did a review last April, they had 17 recommendations for the ERP and 4 related to the Agitech. And IT has adopted and put in place action plans. CRI will conduct a post-audit review soon and talk about the adequacy of the action plans and the results of the implementation. One of the items that we talked about was one of CRI's recommendations was that a member of the audit committee and a representative from CRI attend weekly meetings that are for governance of the implementation of PeopleSoft. And they've been having the meetings, I guess, every Thursday, and neither of us, neither CRI or a member of the audit committee have been attending. So the discussion came up whether someone should, and probably even better would be your new internal staff auditor, to just not to interfere or to direct anything, but to just observe and be aware of what's going on. So I'll open that up for your consideration. We also had a discussion about the audit committee's role in school board hiring internal auditors. You'll recall the September 24th workshop, there were discussion about how that process went, and we want to improve that. And okay, all right. And we want to improve that process, so we are going to work on the audit committee charter and make recommendations for changes to that. We also had a discussion, this was a follow-up to what we had brought forth in the September 24th workshop, also about the Auditor General meetings. We had requested that the full audit committee be involved in the entrance and exit meetings. And, you know, you all were of the opinion that wasn't a good idea. And so we talked about that, and we wanted it made, you know, we wanted to bring it to your attention that because, you know, the audit committee is charged with oversight, and as a, and part of the audit committee charter says that we are to make a recommendation for you all to accept the audited financial statements. But we feel like because we are not gonna be involved in the planning, and the oversight of this audit, that we won't be in a position to be able to make that recommendation this year. So, then CRI produced a report on the internal audit review of the payroll department accrual. As you know, there was an overpayment of employees, and a number has to be on the June 30th, 2019 financial statement. And so CRI performed an internal audit on that, and you will be hearing from Mark Smith. We were pleased with the report, and we recommended, or actually voted unanimously to recommend the CRI report for your approval. We also heard from CRI's Matt Antonelli. They've been working on a review of the process involved in the building of Parish Community High School, and we reviewed the report, a draft of the report, had made some suggestions for revisions, and we'll take it up at our next meeting, which will be December 9th. At that meeting, we will also be hearing from Moore Stevens and Lovelace. They plan to have the report on the audit of the internal accounts. And on the agenda, hopefully, is a discussion of the management discussion and analysis for the CAFR from last year. And CRI expects to have their payroll and HR audit report draft to us at that time. Any questions?
You're doing great. I guess not. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
very,
you.
very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Next is the internal audit report.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What we performed was a review of.
For the benefit of our
Oh,
200,000
yeah.
viewers, will you identify your name and what company
My
you're
name
with?
is Mark Smith. I'm an internal auditor with Carr, Riggs and Ingram. We perform audit services for the school district.
Thank you very much.
So what you have here in front of you is the payroll overpayment accrual report that we conducted. The district identified that there was a need for an accrual for overpayment to employees for the 18-19 school year, and at the direction of the audit committee, while performing the full payroll audit that we're currently conducting, we concentrated on the overpayment and the accrual piece to validate the information and the number determined by the school district, as well as any other outstanding that we could identify in our testing. Originally, the district identified approximately $70,000 in overpayments that were still current. In our testing, we identified another $8,693.60 for a total of $78,801 that were currently outstanding. The district did, throughout the school year, identify $242,000 in overpayments that they collected on. And throughout our review, we did notice that there were some proactive queries and steps taken by the district to identify overpayments throughout the course of the payroll process. However, we did come up with, as you see on pages 1 and 2 of the report, some recommendations for the overall process of payroll, as well as the PeopleSoft system, understanding some of the interactions of the payroll process and items that should be further researched to limit possible overpayments in the future. So I know everyone's had a chance to read the report, so I'd take any questions that you might have in our review, recommendations we made, or management responses.
Board members, colleagues?
That's my answer? All right.
Questions? Okay, I think that's it. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, workshop. The capital plan facility survey, who are we honored to have present that?
We have two presentations, Mr. Minor. We have our representative from Jacobs, Jessica, with us today, and then I'm going to give you an update on our capital budget.
Okay, come on down.
It should be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nope, that's not it. Michelle, do we have Jane sent it the other day? We'll get it for you.
They're working on it.
didn't
There is no microphones.
Okay.
Yeah, they're working on it.
Just wanted to let
There
you
is
know.
just, there's no audio on
Like
the
a
TV.
screech.
Yeah. Mr. Kennedy had a digestive problem.
Okay, I'll share my mic with Charlie
Yeah, when he needs it.
whenever you need it.
He can play with it.
Okay.
He's got a long cord on it. You think it's his mic. That's definitely mine.
Can we unplug it?
Yeah, he unplugs it. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Plug it back in, let's make sure.
Oh,
This is very exciting.
It's the highlight of your day.
Testing, testing.
much better. There you go.
Thank you, backroom staff. Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
So we're working on a PowerPoint.
I just sent them another copy.
Nick, are they on the desktop?
Yeah, I don't see it, because this is Paris. It should say Manatee School Board Presentation.
Yeah, but it's not one of those, so I'm gonna plug in this laptop.
We'll get there, huh?
Start with your capital presentation and switch to hers. Let's do that, and then I'll have
It'll be worth the wait.
I don't doubt it.
I apologize for the delay. There we go.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Jessica Goodell, and I'm a project manager with Jacobs Engineering Group. And we did your facility condition assessment earlier this year. I think we were in the field January, February timeframe. And so I'm here just to give a quick update on the findings we had there. I believe we were here, I think I was here in May. So a little bit shorter presentation about what we did, the approach we took, and how it can fit into your capital plan and long-range facilities planning. Little background on what a facility condition assessment is. It generally evaluates the health of your facilities. We identify current deficiencies as well as future need. You don't want to forget that roof that's coming in 5 years, or those air handlers just because they're not broken today or deficient today when you're planning. All of our condition assessments also prioritize items, so fire and life safety is clearly more important than your carpet. Your roof is pretty important. You don't need leaky roofs, which would damage a lot of other systems in your facility, so we prioritize everything 1 through 5. And then we calculate a facility condition index, which I'll talk a little bit more about that. And basically all this will give you information to help you start your planning process and start making your capital plan. How does an assessment fit into a long-range capital plan? It's really just your starting point. We kind of gave you a baseline set of data about what we found and what we saw. It doesn't give you a plan. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just is what our assessors found in the field. And so when you're making a long-range plan or a capital plan, you want to think about other things that are going on within the district, possibly enrollment changes, overutilization or underutilization, any educational adequacies you have in your facilities, and of course funding is always pretty important to how much you're going to spend. So really it's just one piece of the puzzle that will help you get started in a plan. Again, our plan was comprehensive, so we looked at all building systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your roofs, you name it, we probably looked at it. And everything is actionable, so Jane and her team will know to go and replace the carpet or replace that roof. We didn't just score things and say it's good, fair, or poor. So they'll have accurate cost estimates. We take a standardized approach. We put, I think, 4 teams in the field for you, so the further away you get from one person doing assessment, the further away you get from consistency across the board. So we have tools in place to help the teams be really consistent and focused on what they're looking at. And you can see we collected a lot of data. There's over 22,000 life cycle items and over 3,000 current deficiencies. So it's a pretty large database. What did we find? We found that you guys have 7 million square feet of permanent space, just over 200,000 of temporary space, and you have a significant amount of covered walkways, which is pretty common in Florida, for a total of almost 8 million square feet that you guys are the team's managing. Your average school age is 29 years, so that's pretty new, relatively speaking, across the country that we see. And you can see you have a pretty good range of elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, a nice little kind of distribution there. So what did we find that was needs? So we found $96 million in current needs. So that's ideally, if you had all the money in the world and you could go get a construction project and fix everything tomorrow, you'd spend $96 million. And then over the next 5 and 10 years, you can see that's another 290 and almost $70 million over the next 10 years that you should be considering in your planning. But we all know you can't do everything. Nobody has that kind of money. Even I can't fix my house, all the things I want to do to it. So this is just a way to plan. All the life cycles also prioritized 1 through 5 so that they can start making decisions on what you need to fix when you go through those facilities and you have a renovation projects. You want to make sure you're taking a real comprehensive approach to your renovation projects. I mentioned the facility condition index. It's just an indicator of your health of your facility, so it's your need over the next 5 years divided by a theoretical replacement value, just so we can compare dissimilar facilities. This way, a high school is probably always going to have more need than an elementary school because it's a lot bigger, so this puts them on the same playing field by developing a ratio. It's only one indicator of what's going on in the facility. There's a lot of things that go into making a decision about when to replace or repair a facility. And as you can see here, you get over about 65% FCI. You get kind of at that point of no, limited return on your investment. You guys didn't have any facilities that fell into that range anyways. So you have about 9 that are in the poor category, and Gene Witt's already under renovation. So even poor facilities, these are really great facilities that you guys have in your district, even though they're categorized as poor. They're really well-maintained facilities. So quick just summary of findings. It's, your facilities are really well constructed, well maintained. My assessors have been around the country. David Cunningham was in the field for your team. He also did Jacksonville, Duval County Public Schools, I'm sorry. And he said these were some of the best schools he's seen in the state. So you guys are really doing a great job with the funding that you have. So what's next? You've completed an assessment. You have a ton of data. We handed over the database to Jane and her team. This summer, we gave them training on how to use that. We were here a few weeks ago working with them again on how to really use that software so that they can start developing their projects. And what this software allows them to do is go into a school and start figuring out what it is they can afford and what they can spend money on. So if they're in there and they're replacing the light fixtures, well, maybe they better get the ductwork, and they maybe should get those ceiling tiles, because you can't put the ceiling tiles back up. And guess what? Oh, we found that this was a little bad, and now we're going to have destroyed everything, so we might as well paint it too while we're in there. And so a lot of information, they can kind of bundle it up and start looking at it as a holistic package instead of just piecemealing something together. And so that's what we worked with Jane on, and I think that'll be really a powerful tool for them. We have a lot of districts that are using that tool as a way to package up their findings and then turn that into their 5-year capital plan.
So to build on what Jessica just said, we have developed a long-range capital working group, and it's comprised of our instruction leaders, also our student assessment. We have members of the operations team. We have strategic planning, so that we can put together information using the long-range facility plan with also student numbers, grades, and various other components to bring that to the board to help you make a more informed decision. The next thing that we're going to talk about is our budget. So I believe you received a few handouts, and then also have a very short presentation that basically just summarizes our budget for you, the current capital plan. So what this is this is the 5-year plan as it stands right now. The first slide will show you the capital revenue by fiscal year. It breaks it down by fund, so you can see how it's made up. We have large groups listed here for you. Construction projects, so as Paul had discussed fencing earlier, that's included in the construction project budget of $41 million for this year. You see bleachers, flooring, boilers, chillers, controls, various other elements, painting, parking lot, plumbing, roofing, safety to life, which is the closed caption TV, maintenance projects and technology. We have transportation, $1.5 million for buses that we can purchase this year, maintenance vehicles, MSTV, also miscellaneous equipment, and we have to pay our uninsured property loss from our capital fund. This is one of the subjects that comes up frequently. Everything with an X in front of it is one of the transfers, so school FF&E, music and band uniforms are things that are purchased from the general fund and can be transferred from capital later on. This gets brought up most recently. We have special school maintenance projects, construction department and maintenance department, portions of their operating expenses, for example, employees can be capitalized. Our charter school capital outlay, sales tax, property insurance, and debt service. So the very last slide shows you our fund balance and how it's made up. We have local capital improvement, sales tax bond, impact fees, and other. Our reserve fund balance this year is $28.9 million. Next year it's $13.6 million. We try to keep at least a $10 million reserve for emergency situations. Year 3, we're again at $28.9 million. out year 4, it goes up to about 70.5. So we would actually be able to accomplish a lot in that year. And year 5, it's 135.6. Before we get to questions, I'd like to tell you a few other pieces of information. So one important factor is we have about $100 million that we can borrow. That would be if you maxed out your borrowing, which I would not recommend doing, and I'm sure the board wouldn't be comfortable with. We also have about $240 million available in pay-as-you-go funding, and then our COPS funding, we could borrow up to $551 million. The board has asked before about refunding. Under current tax laws, tax-exempt debt cannot be refunded more than 90 days prior to a respective call date. So in order to refund that debt more than 90 days, the district would have to issue a taxable refunding debt. Given the higher interest rates that we currently have, that would not actually save us any money at this time. So I have a breakdown of that if you have any questions. And you have 2 giant handouts. I apologize for their size, but I was really worried you couldn't read them if we didn't make them big. So, on the one that's landscape, that's 2 pages, this lists our current capital projects, and you'll see prior funding. So that shows you what we've spent previously, and then as you go out, it shows what's budgeted in the remaining years, and these are just for our current projects. So you'll be able to see what was spent, what we're spending this year, and what we intend to spend. A good example would be Parish Community High. $6.2 million is what's showing in our budget this year. So that's a little misleading when we've already spent $84.8 on the majority of the construction in prior years. So hopefully that will give you a little bit better picture. And then at the bottom, we have long-range planning, which are projects that aren't funded that we wanted to include on here. It shows things that we have an idea of what the budget may be. They are part of our long-range planning discussions and items that we will have to decide if will be funded in the future and when. Not saying we can't add additional items as well. And then the final handout is your proposed 5-year capital plan. This just breaks it down a little bit more than what the PowerPoint does and gives you a little bit more detail. It's just another view, and it shows you down to the object code level of what we have and have budgeted, and also breaks it down by elementary, middle, high, other educational sites, other projects, equipment, transfers, and debt, just so that you can see it from a different slice. So does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Board Member Kennedy.
Thank you. Heather, this is more of a logistics question than a finance question, but I'll ask it to you anyway, and then we'll. But on your landscape, extra large landscape, the very last line says firing range at the port, a new 7,500 square foot building, and then total cost being 9.5. That is, we've got some money spent this year, and then the bulk of it will be next year. But is that it's too late for this question, but is this an expense we could share with other local governments so they could utilize it as well?
Oh, Mr. Chair, can I answer
Yeah,
that?
okay.
Yeah, so actually we
Right.
put that in there, and the initial conversation we had was that there was gonna be land at the port for us to put it at the port, and then we found out that no, there's no land at the port for that firing range. So we are seeking land, and we're working on some projects right now. And it may have to be shared with some other agencies, depending on where we locate it. But the original plan was to have it at the port, and we cannot have it at the port now. For them.
But beyond that, let's step forward and we do find a location.
Okay.
Is that 9 million for the 2020-21 school year? Is that the total cost of construction of the building?
That was actually just a placeholder, because at the time when we were talking about at the port, we were talking about an inside firing range. And depending on where the land's located, it could very well be an outdoor range, which would be better. You know, we would rather have an outdoor range. It's less money, less issues with cleanup. So that 9 million is truly just a placeholder, and it's on the part of the sheet that's unfunded right now. So it's just a placeholder. But we think it'll be considerably less than $9 million.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was just kind of looking at it as anywhere we can partner with, other local
Yep.
agencies. It seems like it might be a good opportunity.
I think it's an excellent question. Thank you, Board Member Kennedy.
Thank you.
I have a question that, when we, I'm looking at the current capital and the, where you have prior YR funding
Yes, sir.
across the top. Now, is that for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what years?
There are, in some cases, it's 1 year, in others, it's multiple years. We summarized the prior year funding so that it would fit better here, but if you would like, I can send you the spreadsheet that has the detail.
Okay, I guess my
So
question,
Barbara Harvey Elementary is multiple years. Multiple years. For example, for Bayshore High, that would just be 1 year. So it depends on the project.
okay, like Bayshore High has 2 entries.
So for, right, the rubberized, let me see, the science lab, prior year funding, that was $1 million last year, and then we have 128,000 remaining this year. For the rubber track, that's $600,000 planned for this year. We didn't have any in the previous year. We have Braden River renovation, which is $2 million for this year, and $10 million for 2021, and 21-22 is $11 million. In some cases, this is our tentative 5-year capital plan. Some of these projects are funded, they are budgeted, but some have only been through a portion of the construction phase. This is just the current plan.
If it isn't too much trouble and expense, indicating what years, like, I'm looking at, you mentioned Bayshore and the science lab. It's very clear that we want to spend $128,000 in 1920, this fiscal year, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's not clear about our having spent, $1 million in prior years. And I'm just wondering if, when you do this, at least in the future, you would indicate, this was in the science lab, if you indicated, this was, what years it was spent. I mean, it could be 19 comma, or 18 comma, 19 comma, 20 or something like that. I don't know when it was spent, but it was sometime in the past. That's all we're saying there.
Yes, sir. I can list them in separate columns or however you would like to see.
Yeah,
them.
I don't think it needs to be in separate columns. That's my point. We have one column. I'm not asking for a breakdown, but I would be interested in knowing, what years we had actually spent this, 1 million. Was it just 1 year or 2 years or 3 years? But
Is there a current specific one you have a question about
Well,
right now, or just?
okay, well, that's one you cut down to Mona Jane. I don't think we're going back many years from that. It's probably like, this past year. But just for ours and the public's information, you get down to Wakeland was probably, last year.
Right, none of them go past 16-17. 16-17 is the first year. Mona Jane was $2 million in 16-17. It was $23 million in 17-18, and it was $16,215,840 in 18-19. So what I can do is I can send this, I do have the breakdown. I will send it to Michelle and have her send it to you today. And then
Okay.
if she wants to attach it to the board work, we can. But I have it. It was just, I wanted to include this in the PowerPoint, but when I did, it was very difficult to read. So you'll be able to see it this way.
I think you deserve praise from somebody whose eyesight is not the newest.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
The Bay Shore High School Science Lab renovation was last school year, so that.
Okay, that would be
$1 million
pretty
was
simple.
for last
Yeah.
school year, and a little bit on this school year to finish it up. It should be done by the winter break.
Okay. But I do praise you for, having it like this, so it's, readable, for people to see. I know sometimes it comes through, and I know, what the heck are we talking about? But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Vice Chair Messenger.
This kind of ties back to some of the old business that's in their meeting tonight, really, because a lot of this is what's in there. But I had a couple questions because part of, and I'm jumping ahead because it's the board work tonight, but part of what was in the board work for tonight that we're going to submit to the state is, I don't know the right way to say it, capacity and the percentages that we're at with. And one of the items that was on there was Lakewood Ranch High, and I think it's projected in the next few years to be 120%. Something,
Yes.
maybe it was 112. Something crazy. Anyways, it was
I have it.
significantly over 100. I have to go back and look at that document to know which one it was, but it was significantly over. And I do see that it's noted in here, but not really. I mean, it's so many years out.
Right. Lakewood Ranch's high school is one of the ones that we've spoken about before. In order to be able to do an addition, to build the addition, we have to move the portables that are sitting on the site in which the addition will go. So there's a little bit of work to be done to prepare for that. It doesn't have to remain as far out as it is. It's that's just the placeholder until we're able to do the groundwork and figure out how to do it and what we need to do to make it work.
So is that something that the construction department is actively working on?
Yes, the whole thought planning process.
Mr. Minor, I can answer.
Okay,
that
yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yes, Superintendent
We've
Saunders.
got it tagged because we do know it is a priority. Brick and mortar, it's only built for around 1,700 students. It really should be closer to about 2,000 anyway. But they can't begin the addition until there is a reduction. We do think with some of the changes by not guaranteeing siblings in the future and the continuation of each grade matriculation at the new high school, we do feel that we are going to reduce some of the students there. So when we see next year's projections, soon as we see that we feel that we can remove 8 or 10 portables to put an addition, then we can move, we will adjust the timing of it and go ahead and move that wing ahead of where we've got it placed.
Okay, well, maybe this is once again a question for later on, but the projections that we're submitting to the state say that we're expecting that in a few years it's going to be 2,400 students, not a reduction. They're expecting it to be higher. That's what we're submitting. So what is that based on?
Well, that's what's enrolled there today. We do think there's going to be growth, of course, out east. So if we can shrink it down a little bit in time to build a wing, we can add another wing if need be. We just don't have any space to do it right now because all of the portables are taking up the location where the addition would have to be.
Okay, and my other question, forgive me if you've already answered this, but the science labs, the renovations of the science labs, is that being paid for out of millage dollars for under STEM?
No, ma'am, it's being paid for out of capital.
Capital?
Paid out of-
The construction portion is being paid for out of capital,
Sure.
and the equipment is being paid for out of STEM.
Right, anything that's not attached to the building, when you turn it over, that falls out, is gonna pay for the STEM.
I don't want anyone to turn over our buildings.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, so we really are, that was the intent, to upgrade all the science labs, so starting at the high school.
Okay, and I think that's a great, I think that's great. I just wanted to make sure that was clear of how that's being divided and, I think those were my main questions. Actually, I have one more. Sorry, do you mind?
Yeah. Go right ahead.
The long-range planning that's not funded right now, and I noticed that Freedom's on there for a possible addition, and that was something else that we are submitting to the state, and that was actually one of my questions for later on, so I'll just tackle it now since it's on here. How do you decide, or do we decide, it should be funded instead of not funded? If the need arises, I mean, we're talking about in the next meeting, possibly changing the zoning, and what we're being given right now shows that that would not overfill the school. However, we also know that that whole area of Heritage Harbor is still being developed. And so there is a possibility in the future, and I think what I saw in the other document we submitted that it was planned for, I don't know, at least 3 to 5 years out, that we might need it. And perhaps when those homes are built, we might see that. How do we decide that that would be needed?
And as we're in the discussion and data gathering process, once we bring it to the board and you indicate during a workshop or during a board meeting that it is something that you want to move forward with, or we find compelling information that says we really need to do this, we put it in our placeholder as we gather the facts. And once we have everything together, we will bring it to you so that a decision can be made.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Minor, can I make a?
Yes, Superintendent Saunders.
And I think as part of the conversation earlier that Jacobs had indicated, we have to look at our projections. So we have to work directly with Mr. Sauer's department, which works with the county and the city permitting department, so that we can kind of stay on top of it. Right now, even if those changes were approved for Freedom, a wing is not needed, and they have 8 empty portables there. So what the hope would be is that you remove the portables, build a brick and mortar to hopefully get, a lot of those portables off, because we do know there is going to be growth. So that would accommodate for that. So when we're going through, we're trying to look at those things, find a way that if we're doing renovations, we can remove portables if any exist, or if we have possible growth, instead of building a brand new school, it could be in some places that we could satisfy a wing for a span of time, which is a much cheaper solution, and it really does help us put some money into our older facilities for a short amount of time. We do know that we will have to build in some future state, but I think right now with doing some other things, we can manage it with some wings at Lakewood Ranch, at Hell, at Freedom, at different places, and satisfy the growth that we're seeing.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any further questions? Okay.
Mr. Minor, may I make one more comment? Since you brought up the facility, our board work this evening for our capacity plan and also our work plan or facility plan, we had to update that today because the DOE website was listing 1920 funding as what is projected for 2021. So we were able to get in and finally make that change, and rather than delay another couple board meetings, since it's correct now, we wanted to go ahead and bring it to the board. So I apologize for the abrupt change today, but now I believe that everything is ready to go.
We appreciate the great job you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is, on the agenda of our workshop is financial impact bilingual bonus for paras. Okay.
Is it there?
On the top. one's on the top one. There it is.
All right, good afternoon, board members, board chair, Mr. Minor, Mrs. Saunders. There was a request of the board to look at the possibility of compensating our bilingual ESOL pairs a little bit above what they're being paid right now. And that is due to the fact that we are having trouble filling those positions. When we looked at our current vacancy data, we also decided to include in this presentation our exceptional student education ESE paras, as well as our behavioral technicians. Those are also part of the paraprofessional group of employees, and those as well, we're having trouble filling those positions. Just to give you some background, bilingual ESOL paraprofessionals, they do have, we have 90 allocated in the school district at this time. 5 of those positions right now are posted and vacant. All of our paraprofessionals are required to have 60 credit hours or pass the Parapro test. Additionally, our bilingual ESOL paraprofessionals are required to take an oral reading and writing test to determine their bilingual and biliterate abilities, and they have to have a passing score on that test, so it is an additional qualification. Additionally, they have training requirements that are above and beyond all of our other paraprofessionals. They have 4 mandatory trainings they must attend every year. These all are part of updates and compliance for the ESOL requirements for our students. They also receive training on Project ELL, which is compliance on the online compliance documentation program, and also for the annual Access 2.0 assessment training. They're all required to receive that additional training. When it comes to our ESE paraprofessionals, each school is allocated ESE paraprofessionals based on their weighted FTE depending on the students and their disabilities. Currently, we have 20 positions posted and vacant, and all those positions have 1 to 5 applicants each, and some of them we have multiple, the same person has applied for every position. Again, they must have 60 credit hours of coursework or a passing score on the paraprofessional test. In addition, they are differentiated by the type of class that they serve. And right now we have 4 different classifications: EBD, emotionally behavior disordered; ASD, autism spectrum disorder; IND, intellectually disabled; and VE is varying exceptionalities. Typically those are students that have maybe other health impaired or learning disabilities. Their training requirements, so we broke this down by the EBD and ASD paraprofessionals because those are the units that we struggle the most to fill. Those paraprofessionals are required to have 3 trainings once they're hired: behavioral tools 1 and 2, and PCM, professional crisis management training. Also, they receive additional training depending on the targeted disability. So if they're in an IND class, they may be required to have training on how to lift a child from a wheelchair or similar health kinds of guidelines. The behavior technicians, this is another, this is a portion of our paraprofessional job group, and what they do is they provide behavioral support to schools, especially with students that they're trying to do early intervening with behavior supports. They are required to have the 60 college credits and the ability to complete and maintain the certification in the professional crisis management. Currently, there are 32 behavior technician positions allocated, and we have 7 that are vacant and posted. Let's see. Their additional training requirements, again, go back to the 3 trainings once they're hired. And additionally, all behavior technicians are required to earn the registered behavior technician certification once they're hired. It's a pretty intensive program. Just to give you some ideas on pay ranges, ESOL bilingual paraprofessionals and ESE are on the regular paraprofessional salary schedule. If you look at it from a yearly salary, step 1 starts at $16,442, and step 30 is the highest paid, which is at $30,000. We typically don't place them when they're first hired that far. It usually is about step 8.
And if you look at it an hourly rate range, it's $11.63 an hour, all the way to $19.97. Our behavior technicians are placed on what's called the PL1 salary schedule. Step 1 starts at $19,808, which is equivalent to $13.04 an hour for those additional trainings and additional duties and qualifications. Thanks to Jacob Davis, we were able to pull some student data for you, so you can get a look at what our ELL student population is as compared to other districts and the needs that we have. Compared to our total enrollment, we have 12.78% of our population is ELL students. That is the highest in the surrounding counties that we have. We are the highest. When you look at our ESE student population, it's a little bit different. We're second to the lowest with 20.72% of our student population as students that have disabilities. Our findings from the student population for ELLs, the data has relevance when it comes to examining the need for the bilingual paraprofessionals, as well as relevance to examining the demand for ESE paraprofessionals and behavior techs. Relative to our adjacent school districts, Manatee is the highest when it comes to ELL students, and we are below average with our adjacent districts in ESE students. The data does support a pay adjustment for the ESOL bilingual professionals, and with relative percentage of unfilled positions, time to hire, that sort of thing, that should help us guide our decisions for the ESE. So again, thanks to Jacob Davis, who is a wonder at working the numbers. He provided a couple scenarios for you. So what we did is we provided a 2%, a 4%, and a 6% pay adjustment scenario. If you look at the bottom on the 2% column, you will see supplement for all. We suggest paying out as a supplement rather than changing the entire pay schedule. If we supplemented all the groups that I spoke of today, and we did it at a 2% increase, it would be a $383.87 supplement. If we just pulled out the bilingual paraprofessionals as was originally requested, it would be $1,384.02. And then you can see subsequently in the other two columns what that breakdown would look like as a supplement at 4% and at 6%. Any pay adjustment awards should be executed via supplements. This would minimize any issues in PeopleSoft and any pay salary schedule adjustments. And the serious consideration should be given that we do this for the 2021 school year. And just to keep in mind, any pay adjustments to the paraprofessional group would have to be negotiated with MEA. Any questions?
Board Member Hopes.
Why, given we haven't completed negotiations this year, why the recommendation that we wait until the 2021 school year?
I believe our paraprofessional, I'm not sitting on those negotiations, so I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that this year with our MEA negotiations that we're not up for a full, to look at the full adjustment. I don't think this was something that we originally budgeted for this year, to give a retro payment backwards.
That's sort of our decision. Yeah, I don't, unless the superintendent has some compelling reason, I think waiting to address this until next year is just prolonging the inevitable. We have a problem today. The state in its guidelines sort of expects us to pay differentially for these types of professionals, especially when they're in demand. And it doesn't appear to be an exorbitant amount of money in order to cover it. The one thing that is lacking here is how our pay compares to these other districts for these professionals.
Okay.
Do we have that information?
I do not have that information. Our paraprofessionals are all on the same salary schedule. We don't differentiate. So it is the same for all of the paraprofessionals. One of the things we would have to do is to go back and recreate, especially for our ESE paraprofessionals, recreate separate job descriptions for each of those. But I did not gather that information from the other districts as far as our pay goes for paras. But I can get that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Board Member Kennedy.
Thank you. Wendy, can I take you to this page right here?
Yep.
Now, the positions that are listed, what you're presenting to us, and thanks to you and Jacob for putting this together. These, I'll just start at the top, like Behavior Tech and Behavior Tech 2. What we're kind of baking in here is a supplement for that position, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this right. With this employee count, this is whether the person is bilingual or not, right?
So in the behavior, yes, so if you look at the shaded portion of that spreadsheet, that is just the bilingual paraprofessionals. The other positions, our ESC and behavior technician, are not, bilingual is not required for those positions.
Okay, but we're still lumping them in. We're including them in the calculation of what this would cost.
That is correct, but at the bottom of the spreadsheet, it does show you all, and then if we just went ahead with the original request, which was for bilingual only, what that would look like.
Okay, got it, thank you, that clears it up. Just one more thing, Mr. Chair, if I may. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. We talked about this a while ago, and for me, this offering some sort of bonus or stipend, I think that makes sense to offer this as a stipend. But in my view, there are other positions that being bilingual is a necessity. For example, a school secretary who works in a predominantly ESOL, ELL student population, parent population. We have school psychologists who deal with ELL students who may not be completely proficient in English yet, or when they're dealing with a psychologist or counselor, may be more comfortable and be able to express themselves more fully if they are speaking to someone in their native language. So I would just make the comment to the board that I think this is a great start, but I think there's some positions missing here, excuse me. And I personally would want to include those other positions where that being bilingual and biliterate is an important aspect of that job. So that's it. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Board Member Kennedy.
Good work.
Good work.
All right.
I want to follow up on Board Member Kennedy's comments. Excuse me, can you hang around, please? I think the thrust of his inquiry and concern before was it would seem that the district would benefit, particularly in the position that he asked about, and he has some additions, today, if we were to attract and employ more bilingual employees in those positions. And the information that he was referring to that is comparative, or maybe it was Board Member Holtz, the comparative salaries in other districts. We'd rather have them working here than other districts. And we would like to have the salary invitation more compelling to be here than maybe to drive to Hillsborough or Sarasota. And we'd rather have those in Sarasota and Hillsborough and Pinellas, drive here, attracted by the extra salary. So, starting point is knowing what those salaries are, for those positions for bilingual. Now, I don't know if do we know that supplements are being paid for bilingual in these other districts? Do we know that right at this point?
I do not know that, no.
Okay. Okay, I'll get you. But I'm just suggesting that, to help address what I think is a very legitimate, concern and, request that we get that information. I think that helps me at least, decide about whether or not we want to go down that road. I'm kind of prejudiced toward going down that road, but I'd like to at least know what the figures are before saying, okay, we're going to do that. Now, Board Member Hopes brought up, okay, why not now? And I think I'm not his mind reader, but the idea is letting those who are bilingual here now, get the idea that, well, we extra appreciate their being here. And it's also a signal, going out at, this time that we really want them, and that's going to bilingual people in those talents in other places, not waiting another year. Because come next June, we want to be in the best position, I guess, to attract them. So I guess that would be a budget amendment, and we don't know really how much to amend the budget, without knowing what's being paid in other places. We can, I guess, grab something out of the air, but it would be helpful, I think, in all of our making of decisions and knowing what's being paid in other districts and what supplements might be made. And I think that Board Member Kennedy described it very well in saying this is a great start. But I guess Mr. Kennedy would, and I think that the thrust of Board Member Hope's comments were, well, let's get on with it and let's get it done, and we have a great need, and we would like to get it addressed as soon as possible.
I can certainly readjust this PowerPoint and send it back out that has that information, just the base pay for the rest of the adjacent districts. The other part about the rest of the bilingual employees in our district is how do we determine who they are? We would have to do that work up front. We would have to have some kind of, probably that same test that the bilingual paras take. We would have to have a time frame where people would have to actually be able to prove they are biliterate. What's encouraging though, and a good place to start, well, one of the good places to start is in our new recruitment module in PeopleSoft, our new talent management piece. There's a part of the application that does ask applicants, and it does go through questions on whether or not they can read, write, teach. Is it their home language, their main language? So it does kind of filter that out, but not every current employee is going to apply for a position in the recruitment module at this time. But we could use that same thing. I think in order to budget for that and to get a better idea, we've got to know how many of our employees are actually biliterate. If we were looking at, the lady who works at the front desk or the employee that's, driving a bus who's bilingual. If you're looking at expanding that, we would have to really survey our employees to get that information. We don't know that. It's not something we ask or we've had asked in the past.
Okay, that sounds great. I think you probably appreciate, and your staff more than anybody, the growing increase in percentage of students that they start out at least speaking a different language, and that increasing number of students and likelihood that it'll continue in the future makes it more important, the sooner the better. And I think that's what the board is wanting to have addressed. Mr. Hopes has some comments or further questions. Mr. Hopes.
Thank you. Yeah, members, the reason why I have been pushing this is that it was actually in the 17-18 school year when I spoke with a para at Bayshore Elementary School who actually had a bachelor's degree and been a teacher, but she was here in our area because of family reasons, and really enjoyed the position so well that she wanted to stay, but she was from Orange County, and her pay for a similar position in Orange County was so much higher because they had a differential payment for bilingual paras. And so I don't know that it's just our surrounding area. I mean, look, we've got a pretty, mobile population, and so this was a situation where, we actually had a very competent employee who liked where she was, but the pay difference was so significant between here and Orange County, specifically because they paid bilingual paras and aides at a supplemented or a higher rate. So I would, I don't know what the sources of that is, but I think it's significant. I don't think it's isolated.
Counties, you're talking about all the counties in the, because typically our paraprofessionals on this particular case sounds like it was a kind of an anomaly, because typically our paraprofessionals aren't driving from another district to work here. They live right here in Manatee County. So are you looking at a comparison of all the districts in the state?
I think we could look at a region. I mean, Orlando's not quite that far away. Unfortunately, I have to drive there tomorrow morning. But when someone's looking at, where they want to live and where they want to work, it could make a difference. It could make a difference. We want to be competitive. So,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Board Member Hobbs. Board Member Kennedy.
Whatever you want to call me is fine. Yeah, it's an interesting point about how do we collect, how do we figure this out, how many people we're talking about? And this is really the superintendent's and staff decision how to do this, but this is just a suggestion, but maybe, and really, let me broaden the scope of the group of employees that I'm talking about, because really, this could be a principal or an assistant principal who deals with a high percentage of Spanish-speaking parents. And so to have a school leader who's able to stand in front of a parent meeting and slip back and forth between English and Spanish, I think that's a value add to that employee, that employee should be paid a premium. So I want to frame this as like any school district employee who uses their bilingualism or literalism, probably not a word.
They're foreign language skills.
They're foreign language skills. I think it should apply to them. And so maybe we just ask the employees, if the district were to offer this, would you be willing to take the test? Or, I don't know. These are details for you.
We'll come up with a process.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is for
the
you.
fact that we already have an assessment tool available, it could apply towards anybody. And what we might do is just make our current employees aware of the opportunity, give them a time frame to take the test in the springtime. And if they qualify, then we can budget for that. And if you are correct, Dr. Hopes, we're in negotiations. The two deputies will be discussing it tomorrow. They certainly can bring that up to Dr. Vogel to have a consideration for union purposes of a supplement for the ESOL or those difficult ESC positions. It might be that for this year, because they already had to take a test, for the ones that we were talking about in this list, you could just go with that list right now and then work on the procedure for the following year for all the other cadre of folks, because these have already taken a test. We have a better shot of budgeting now, knowing how many people we have.
I think
And she's already gathered that information. And then have a process in the spring that you could give people the opportunity to take it, and then it would apply for the next year if all that were presented and passed through our bargaining sessions.
I think additionally, as we're looking at the other districts, especially for bilingual, and how, like you said, Orange County, what is it that they use, or what tool do they use to determine that somebody is eligible for that additional supplement?
Finding out that
Finding out,
information as well.
because we have one person right now, it's a face-to-face assessment. We have one person that does that right
Now,
now.
we'll need something, a better system for masses like we're doing. It probably works on an individual new hire, but not going back and screening existing people.
Because everyone's idea of being bilingual is different.
And really, they're looking for biliterate, where you can write, speak, so.
Yeah, Mr. Minor? so-
Yes, sir, Board Member
And
Kennedy.
that was, actually, you guys just hit on my next question, which is, how are we doing this now? And then, is there a cost associated with it? Do we have to send the employee to one of these independent testing centers?
Not,
No, we do it ourselves.
There's one staff member who does this face-to-face.
yes. The paraprofessional
Person's gonna be busy.
test, yes, we do that out of MTC. And there is a charge for that, and it's also available in Sarasota, but we're trying to push everyone to go to MTC. And there is a cost associated for paraprofessionals to do that. But for the bilingual test, it is a face-to-face, and one of our employees administers that.
Thank you.
Do we give,
Board Member Hopes.
do we give Deputy Superintendent Doug Wagner credit for generating that revenue stream for MTC? Is that your idea?
We want to stay. we
Nice job,
actually
nice
want them
job.
to be here locally.
Nice job.
Tired of them going to Sarasota. to
Yes.
take the
Good thinking, good thinking.
What about waiving that fee? How much is the fee?
The paraprofessional fee, I believe, is $50 or $60. It's through Pearson.
It's through Pearson. Yeah, it's a third party, so we're just a Pearson testing site.
So that
what
hinders
does
somebody
this
too
test
when they're
include?
applying for a job, to have to pay that fee.
Yeah, you open up a nice discussion point, Mr. Chairman, because we charge these
But the fee
prospective
will have to
employees
be paid.
a lot, I know,
For
but
the
we do.
paraprofessional test,
But
yes.
we do charge prospective employees across the board a number of fees that I've been kind of surprised that we're expecting them to pay these fees out of their paycheck. In the private world, we don't do that. I mean, we value the employees and we cover the cost of recruitment and things like that. But for some reason, Mr. Chairman, this district has a layer of fees that we charge new employees that I will tell you in the private sector, employers don't, and they couldn't get away with it. They couldn't get away with it because they wouldn't be competitive. So I would like that as a workshop item.
Okay, we have a suggestion. I'm registering, my ignorance about how much we charge, for that. I appreciate the information. I think that providing to the board a scale of the charges we have for people to come, work for us, made available to the board members would be helpful. And then we can consider whatever adjustments would be appropriate or desirable. Okay, Vice Chair Messenger.
Just to add, having worked for 2 of the school districts, being charged fees to come in as a teacher is not that unusual. Like, going to your paycheck is not that unusual.
I was comparing to the private sector.
I understand, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just saying that's not that unusual.
That doesn't mean we have to continue it.
I'm not disagreeing with that either. I'm
Okay.
just saying it's not that unusual.
Well,
Thank you.
It's nice to have the benefit of a teacher, board member who's taught in two different school districts. Any other additional comments or questions? I guess we leave it with, muchas gracias, buenas tardes, hasta luego, and I get my supplement. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the workshop agenda is discussion of school board being a voter registration organization. And thank you. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Mr. Minor, you might have to take the assessment one more time.
I don't want to pay another fee. Okay, am I the leader? No, Mr. Kennedy, I think this is yours. Thank you.
Sure. Michelle, could you put the copies like maybe down there if anybody wants one? Oh, they're on tape. Thank you. Okay. Board members, you've got a packet in front of you. Thank you, Michelle, for getting this ready for me today. On top, and this is my fault because I sent these out of order to Michelle, but the top of your packet are the rules, so you can just kind of put that aside for 1 second. Because really what I want to start with is this voter registration organization summary, but I just want to give you a little bit of background real quick. In 2011, the state of Florida made it possible for school districts to become what's called a third-party voter registration organization. And currently, only Alachua County has taken advantage of this option. And you may already know this, but really quick, there's two ways that people can register to vote in the state. They can do it as an individual, or they can be registered by one of these third-party organizations. Now, there's a lot of rules around being a third party. The most prominent one that we know of is the League of Women Voters. Obviously, political parties do it, and different grassroots organizations do it. But League of Women Voters is probably our most prominent. And the League of Women Voters also already has a relationship with many of our schools. They are in our schools normally at Big Bank Theory with the Chamber of Commerce. Although, quick update on that, the Senator Mike Bennett and the Supervisor of Elections office is now involved with Big Bank Theory. So on off election years, voter registration through Big Bank Theory is being run by Senator Bennett and his staff. And then in election years, because they are busy with elections, that's when the League of Women Voters comes in. Now, back when I was teaching, I always reached out to the League, and Rosalie Schaefer and a couple other volunteers would come, and they would present to my class. I would step aside. They would insist that I step aside because they really were sticklers for these rules about third parties. And so they would do their presentation. They would register the kids who were prepared. They had all the last four of their social. They had all the information they needed for the form. But it got a little tricky being a third party because as I said, there's a lot of rules around it. For example, the law only gives you 10 days to submit those forms to your local supervisor of elections. And there were very stiff penalties around not following those rules. Now, the nice thing about the school district as a third-party registrant is that liability is capped. So, for example, let's say we have 10 teachers at 10 different schools who are registering students to vote. Instead of it being, if there is some problem with a form, instead of it being $1,000 per form, the maximum liability on the school district is $1,000. So even if you have your teachers out there making 100 mistakes, not getting forms in on time. So I just wanted to lead with that, because that's usually the first question is like, what are we putting ourselves at risk for if somebody makes a mistake? So the legislature, in their wisdom, and I think also to promote school districts doing this, kind of cap that liability. There is, the next, if you flip to your next one, this is just literally the form we have to fill out to become a school district that is a third-party registration entity. The page after that is just a little bit of background, of which I just spoke to, and then the page after is the Florida Education Standard. I got this from CPALMS. Social Studies 9 through 12, C.2. The title is Evaluate the Roles, Rights, and Responsibilities of United States Citizens and Determine Methods of Active Participation in Society, Government, and the Political System. So there's one of our high school social studies standards that ties directly into what we're talking about here with getting kids registered and talking to them about the importance of civic engagement. And then finally, the last piece is just a possible document we could send out to our people. Obviously, that's the superintendent's purview, not mine, but that was just a possible verbiage we could send out to any of our teachers who would like to be part of this effort. And as in paying a bilingual bonus to our employees, I think it would show leadership on the part of Manatee County Schools that we became the second county in the state to make sure we got all of our high schoolers registered. You can pre-register at 16, and then what that does, if you're pre-registered at 16, upon your 18th birthday, the supervisor of elections sends to your address your voter registration form, and then it's obviously up to the student to make sure they follow up on that. But I think it would go a long way toward increasing voter engagement and student engagement in the process. So that was a quick couple of minutes on it. This is not a board action item. You, I guess, we can talk about it now, but Reverend Gold's not here either, so this is not a request for action. This is just more of a request for a discussion, what the board members think of the idea, and I could certainly take any questions as well.
Fellow, my colleagues, my feeling about it is it's a great idea, and that as a board we ought to support it. The administration, I think, is part of education, to have stimulus for having students, young people concerned, involved, educated about what goes on in all levels and areas of the government. I see it as an educational function that we can do. I think the idea was really brought home to me at one of the gatherings out at MTC, where there was so many students out there, and somebody came up to me and said, where is a voter education booth? Where can people register to vote? I think I may have spoken with Deputy Wagner about that, and some other folks. And I guess it's not just in the schools, but where we have gatherings of students. And I think it's very patriotic to encourage and help facilitate the registering of voters of our students, or anybody else really. And somebody attending an event out at MTC, they don't necessarily have to be students. They can be parents or people, anybody else who comes in there. I think that our country is stronger when we have community and people involved with the voting. That's where I'm coming from. So I applaud Board Member Kennedy for pushing this along. I've never seen this. I'm proud to be a member of the League of Women Voters, which is quite active. But I've never. Well, I'll take that back. It seems like several years ago I was at Manatee, high school, sitting at a table with. I wasn't doing. I don't remember what I did, but I was there, eliciting, registration.
It was probably Big Bang Theory in the old gym, right?
Yeah, I was in the gym. Yeah,
that was Big Bang
but I haven't done much, and I think the idea as an institution, the board, be involved with it is something that is very worthy of our efforts and our resources. So that's where I'm coming from. So. Yeah, Board Member Hopes, excuse me.
There's a difference between teaching and educating our students on how they can register to vote, and that of becoming a third-party voter registration organization. Principally, your third-party voter registration organizations are either partisan or they have various agendas and the like. And Florida has numerous pathways for people to register to vote. You can register online directly with myflorida.gov or whatever. When a student goes to get their driver's license, they're asked if they want to register, and they can register in advance when they're 16, and then on their 18th birthday, they get a voter's registration card. So I think there's a big difference between being a third-party voter registration organization and instilling the civil responsibility of our students to register to vote. I would like to know why, given the fact that this has been out here for a number of years, only Alachua County schools have taken advantage of it. I have my own ideas, but I'll leave that. And then also, with regards to what would our parents like us to be doing, and would our parents want the school district or the school board to be a third-party voter registration organization? and perhaps bypass whatever discussion is being had at the family's dinner table around registering to vote and what party do you register for? Do you not register for a party? Do you register independent? So I think it's a worthwhile effort to ensure that we're doing all that we can so that our students, when they graduate or they turn 18, are both motivated and informed on how they can register to vote and the civic responsibility of registering to vote. But having even capping the penalties, when organizations I'm familiar with have looked at possibly becoming a third-party voter registration organization, by the time they get through it, they sort of back off, and then they just make arrangements for people to pick up forms. So I think there's a lot more to it. I think it's good that we're having a workshop on it and we're raising the topic to see, what our parents' interests are. I think it's great during Big Bang Theory and other opportunities where we bring in organizations to meet with students. But that's a little bit different than the school board becoming a third-party voter registration organization, because we try to keep campaigning and things like that out of our schools. But now for us to come in and run the risk of maybe unduly influencing the registration, that's another animal.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Board Member Hobbs. Board Member Kennedy.
All good points, if I could address them one by one. Number one, I think, just my opinion, I think a lot of school districts haven't taken advantage because I don't think there's been a lot of attention around the program. I don't have anything to prove that, it's just a thought. Secondly, I think what it does, and this is why I said at the beginning, the League of Women Voters always told me to just get off to the side, don't say a word, we will take care of everything here, because they were really mindful of that kind of wall between registration and partisanship. And any good teacher knows to maintain that wall between their personal views and stepping on their students. We as educators are in a role of authority, and so students looked up to us, and so that's a good point. That wall needs to be maintained. As the leader in the classroom, you've got to maintain that neutrality, present all sides, answer questions fairly. What it does, though, is that if you do have a teacher, and we have 2 teachers that I know of just through researching this in the district now, who went and registered themselves as third-party organizations so that they could register their own students. And so what this does, this is not, in my vision of this is not a district-wide edict for all social studies teachers, you now need to go register your students. But if we do have teachers who would like to do it as part of a unit or for whatever reason, this provides them protection under the umbrella of the organization, instead of them, oh, hey, I collected 12 voter registration forms and then I left them in my car for 2 weeks. Oh, now I got to pay $12,000 in fines. So it just offers protection for our employees if they do want to register kids to vote.
Great response. It might be, I think that's great discussion. I was thinking about having somebody from League of Women Voters, come and talk to us a little bit about that. And I would like to hear somebody, they're not going to come here, but some comment from Alachua about how well or how badly it's gone up there, and what suggestions they might have if for us if we go forward. And I don't know if you've had a chance to talk with them or
Have not.
but I think that your comment about maybe very few districts are aware they could do this, I will confess my ignorance about that as well until you brought it up that the district do this. And when I was asked about voter registration for our one of our Manatee MTC get-togethers, I talked with somebody the League of Women Voters, you know, why aren't we out there as a league? And I guess I should have been asking myself, you know, why isn't the board out there? But I think the idea is very American, you know, to you have to walk a fine, you know, be very careful, I guess, that it doesn't become an advocacy for any position or party or person. But I think that it's not un-American to encourage voting and helping it to be available, you know, through registration. And I think that's mindful of that. Certainly, we would encourage discussion of parents and their children about what they do with it, or even if they're going to register. But I think having it something available in our schools and at gatherings like out at MTC, it would serve the community and serve our country. That's where I'm coming from. But so, is there any further discussion about this, or?
Just in closing, Mr. Minor, I do want to thank Carolyn from the League of Women Voters, and this idea is not meant in any way to replace them, because they've been doing a good job for a long time for our students. And also I want to thank my friend Caroline Denton, who helped me greatly with this research, tracking a lot of this stuff down. Caroline works in our local financial and accounting and auditing sector, but she has an interest in kind of get out the vote efforts for our high school kids. So that's where this came from. So Caroline couldn't be here today, but when she sees this later, thank you, Caroline.
All right. Any other thing? I think we're, there's no, is there public comments? Okay. I'll turn the gavel over to our distinguished vice chair for public comments.
I'm not really sure if anybody that's on this list is here, but I'm going to read the names just in case there's somebody out in the lobby. Janine Cody, Crystal Weddington, Glenn Gibolina, Bridget Mendel. Perhaps we'll see them this afternoon then. All right, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Chair Messenger. With that being said, I think we've completed our business. It was a great workshop. Thank you all very much, and we are adjourned.
Yes, sir.
This just came up on my email, and I want to make sure you're
Okay,
tuned
what is it?
into it. So it's called the Pain Management
You did a nice job, Mr. Minor.
Well, thank you very much.
Pain Management and Addiction Committee. It's at Manatee Memorial Hospital. There was just one last week. I had Earl Muhammad and Leslie Strickland attend. They were there, they came back and said, it's really more for instructional. It's really more of an instructional type committee. And it's the doctors and nurses and hospital administration who are saying, that's what we do in our public schools, to have people, you know,
I completely